Hi, Dr. Camilla here with Living Well. I want to talk about two more differences between perfectionists and high achievers and why high achievers actually achieve more and get more done than perfectionists. So, the first one is perfectionists focus on the tiniest mistakes, whereas a high achiever can focus on the overall accomplishment. And perfectionists get very defensive about any kind of critical feedback, whereas a high achiever actually takes any criticism in as information about ways to improve. So let's break that down. Perfectionists focus on the tiniest mistakes. And you usually hear this immediately. You compliment someone, you tell them they did a good job, and they immediately start pointing out all the little things they did wrong. So let's say you're giving a presentation at school or at work, you're in front of a room full of people. A perfectionist is going to walk away from that and they're going to be like, oh, I pushed the clicker in the wrong way. We went back instead of forward. I skipped those bullets on that one slide. I didn't have enough time to finish all the slides. I talked too fast. I forgot what I was saying, right? That's what's going to be going through their mind, or all the itty bitty little things that they perceived as not working out very well. A high achiever is going to walk away from that meeting focusing on the overall accomplishment. Like, hey, I finished the presentation. I gave it in front of everyone. People were engaged. They were paying attention. They were asking questions. We got through all the main points that we wanted to. We got our message across. That's what a high achiever focuses on. Now, just think a moment about the different kind of emotion and energy that creates, right? When you focus on the tiniest mistakes, you're creating this negative energy, right? It doesn't feel good. It creates doubt. It creates a sense of maybe hopelessness, like, how am I going to get this right? Whereas focusing on the overall accomplishment creates a positive energy, a good feeling. It creates motivation and drive to keep pushing forward and to keep doing well. Okay, so this is why it's so important to pay attention to whether you're always focusing on the little mistakes and never really giving yourself credit for the overall accomplishments, because that energy that you create, that's going to affect your momentum moving forward. Now, the other big difference between the two is that perfectionists get very defensive about criticism. So usually any kind of feedback, especially if it's critical feedback, feels almost like a personal attack, because perfectionists tend to kind of link the two in their minds, right? Who I am and my ability to succeed is one and the same. So my sense of worth is tied into my ability to achieve. So when someone gives critical feedback, it really hurts. And it's easier to kind of go into the defensive to protect myself and not get my feelings hurt than it is to really listen with an open ear. A high achiever, on the other hand, can hear the criticism. They don't get defensive. They're able to examine whether that piece of criticism is useful and it can actually give them some information on how to change and do things better, or if that piece of criticism is coming from someone who really has no say in what's going on and they can choose to set it aside. A perfectionist is going to ruminate on the criticism over and over again and try to think of all the ways to justify or make a comeback. A high achiever is either going to take it in as, hey, this is good to know, let me get better at it, or they're going to cast it aside and be like, yeah, you haven't walked in my shoes, you really don't know what you're talking about, I'm not going to let this bother me. For example, someone gave me the feedback once of like, you say too much when you talk, right? And I remember kind of obsessing about it, and that it would actually cause me to be more anxious when I was speaking. I was pausing more and I was tripping over my words even more because I was so worried about saying rather than practicing and rehearsing and just replacing it. And so those are two little differences. And so when you get super defensive, you actually limit your ability to grow and do better, because you're not in a place where you can actually listen and look at what it is you're achieving. And so being able to step back from that and being able to look at criticism as it's not a personal attack, it doesn't say anything about who I am as a person, it's just a suggestion of how I can improve. Okay. So again, remember, high achievers actually get more done and they achieve more than perfectionists because they are able to approach things with more flexibility. Okay. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Any examples that you have of maybe a time when someone gave you a piece of criticism that at the time you couldn't take because you were so defensive and it hurt, and then later you realized, like, this is actually helping me get better. or of an example of when you were focusing on the mistakes and now looking back, you realize actually that was an accomplishment and I wish I had given myself a little bit more credit for it back then. So drop your comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. And please don't forget to follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Bye bye.